I hope you can hear me. So good morning, good afternoon, and evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us for this month's CARA Unmask Unfiltered series. This is going to be a 40 minutes recorded panel discussion followed by a Q&A. However, please feel free to put your thoughts or questions in the chat column or say hi to someone you know from the audience. There will be a token of appreciation from the CARA Care team towards the end of this webinar, so we hope you'll stay throughout. My name is Bernard, and I'm the co-founder of CARA Unmask, a community-based mobile platform where users remain anonymous and connect securely with trained peer and clinical supporters. I'm also a person in recovery from severe depression, anxiety, and sleep disorder. This is my 3rd year of recovery, and I'm no longer on medication. In many ways, this unfiltered webinar series reflects a similar approach. Being candid, open, and nothing too taboo to talk about. After all, why should we when we talk about mental health, right? So we all know that resilience is the most important factor, not only to mental health, but to performance and success. People who are resilient to adversity, difficulty, and stress quickly rise to the top. They're today's best performers and tomorrow's leaders. Resilience is pretty much the holy grail of positive human functioning. The big question then is how to build resilience. How do everyday people strengthen their capacity to respond well to setbacks, to persist in the face of failure rather than give up, and to cope effectively with stress? Today, in light of practicing gratitude, I'm really grateful to have 2 thought leaders join us in this conversation on how we can build resilience for our mental health. We have Aloysius, Principal Clinical Hypnotherapist with the Hypnosis Clinic. That was quite a tongue twister. And Aloysius is also a CARA Unmask therapist. We have Kevin, founder Rebound with Resilience, an organization dedicated to raising mental resilience. Kevin is also a person with lived experiences and has quite a journey to share. Aloysius, would you share more with the audience about yourself, what you do and why you do it?
Hi, good evening. My name is Aloysius. I'm from the Hypnosis Clinic. Well, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, and also a certified counselor. And what I do for daily living is to hypnotize people. Many people are thinking that hypnosis is used in entertainment. You can see them in movies, and most of the time, unfortunately, we see that set the stage side of the house. For me, I'm a clinical hypnosis, and so therefore I use the science of hypnosis to help in clinical, psychological, and emotional work, especially when individuals have fears, phobias, anxieties, addictions, and really trying to bring quick and fast relief for individuals so that they can actually find hope again. That's my task, and that's what I do for a living, to bring hope to people. And apart from standard psychological and counseling techniques, I use a lot of life coaching and standard talk therapy to get to know you better so that you can find a friend in me, and eventually having the skills of psychotherapy to help you to be a better version of yourself. That's in essence what I do daily. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Aloysius. Thank you so much for doing what you do. And Kevin, would you share your journey with the audience and also a bit about Rebound with Resilience?
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. Can you all hear me? Like, just an okay sign if you all can hear me. Lester, I see you in the screen. Okay, great. I would love if you all can switch on your videos so I can interact with you on the expression. I do speak for a living, right, and I really get the vibe and the energy of you guys. But if not, I will respect that as well. Okay. First of all, just thank you, Bernard, for this opportunity to share. I see a couple of you are switching on your screens. Hi, Caris, John, Martin, Vish. Yeah, so I think I just take about 5 minutes. Is that okay, Bernard?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just to share a little bit about my background. I think I do run a podcast where I share my story in full, but for the sake of this, I just really want to keep it short. So I'm not sure about, I think some of you are not from Singapore. If you're not from Singapore, I think you will understand that the culture here is very focused on social mobility, economic progress, and those are the values that we hold very dear to us. So that's the national narrative. So I grew up as a very perfect kid, inverted commas, and I did well in my studies, had a future ahead of you because by inverted commas, like Singaporean standards, I was like the good, doing well in my life. So I think the first kind of lesson I can share, or the first distinction that I got, was that my self-esteem was very much predicated or dependent on variables. Things like my grades, my achievements, other people's thoughts, other people's my achievements, other people's opinions about me, and that was going well because I was doing good in all those things. But as all of you know, I think that's a very dangerous place to be in because those are variables and they vary, so they can change anytime. So for me, that happened during my A levels. So for some context, right, A levels is actually a major exam before entering university, and there's a lot of pressure to perform. So couple of months before the A levels, right, I actually really felt it. I felt for the first time anxiety in my life, and it affected my preparation. So to cut a long story short, right, I eventually went to my A levels with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and I handed up blank papers for my math. So for some context, right, it's a 6-hour paper, 3-hour paper one, 3-hour paper two. Both papers I handed up blank papers because I had a complete mental block. And up until this point, right, I have never failed exam in my life, okay, let alone a major exam. And I knew for a fact that I was going to get the worst possible score because I handed up blank papers. So that was very devastating. Of course, now grades mean nothing to me, but back then it was everything. My whole identity was built around it. So I was devastated, and naturally, I slipped into depression for a period of time and spent the next couple of months really struggling with my mental health and sanity, I would say. Interestingly enough, my dog was one of the factors in recovery, which I'll get to. But before I get there, I think, just give me a while, my apologies. Yeah, so before I get there, I think even though that was a very difficult period of my life, right, struggling with suicidal thoughts, struggling to even craft my own identity again, because of certain factors, medication, social support, and because of certain mindset shifts that I made, I was very fortunate to actually come out of it. Even though that was the darkest period of my life, now I consider it the biggest blessing by far because it led me to actually start eventually start rebounding resilience. Yeah, so it's a training provider and a podcast dedicated to raising the resilience of youth, and also in Singapore as well, in society in general. Yeah, so without taking too much time, that's just what I do and why I do what I do. Yeah, thanks,
Thank you,
Bernard.
Kevin. Thanks. It's inspiring, and I'm glad you hung on. So now, Aloysius, back to you. How does mental health affect resilience? That's the big question. Could you share more about this?
Yep. I think all of us use our mind, our conscious thinking, reasoning mind every day to make decisions, to help us to reason, and it also helps us to set goals and give us direction and obviously motivation. Unfortunately, when we are down, when we increase our level of stress, anxiety, or some of us move all the way into depression, this faculty starts to slow down. When it starts to slow down, things get a bit foggy. We People tend to negatively ruminate, about lacking in certain things in life, um, and other environmental issues start to cloud our minds. And when this starts to happen, um, we are not trained, so to speak, or we have not trained our mind to stay focused to the course of action. And what happens that we absorb in all this negativity, the failures in life, the inability to strive to get the thing that we want, and we start to look outside, we start to blame, and when that all fails, we look back in our life and say, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. I couldn't do this, I was not able to do that. And things will start to fog up further and further. And what happened next is that if we are not resilient and we are not focused in the task at hand in front of us, we allow this negativity to drag us in further and further. And that's where the subconscious comes in. It learns from experience, right? It uses imagination, and it's a very imaginative mind, and it's extremely strong. And it starts to protect us from from all the negative effects. It wants only the best for the body, so it starts to cut us off from all of these issues and get us to look inwards. And of course, the more inward looking we are, as we are already negative, and this causes the mind to start to stop its fight, and hence the resilience start to slow down and dissipates. And therefore, one thing leads to another thing. So basically, what we want to do is to help individuals to strengthen the thought process, strengthens the ability to use their subconscious in the right way, to speak to it in the right way, so that it will have the power and has its energy to help to manage how the thoughts are. It help the conscious mind in its effort, in its reasoning mind, in its effort to move us forward and to strengthen us. Basically, that's what I believe we should be doing. That's where resilience comes in place.
It's wonderful, Aloysius. Thanks so much for sharing. Kevin, can you share your thoughts on the same, please? How does mental
Does
health
mental health affect
affect
resilience?
resilience? Yes, that's right.
Sure. Yeah, thanks Aloysius for sharing. I think I learned a lot from what he shared about how the power of the subconscious mind and how it affects your conscious. I would say that I think in your previous webinars, you did share that mental health or mental health conditions is a psychosomatic disorder, which means it's both psychology and biology. But I think a lot of us here are quite aware that when depression or certain factors hit, there's a chemical imbalance in your brain that which might require medication. Right? Of course, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot prescribe that. But we know that there's a chemical imbalance in your brain. That's one aspect of it. So when someone is actually going through certain things, you can't just tell someone to be more resilient or just to get over it. I think when I was in that situation and my mom read me all these motivational quotes and try to encourage me, that didn't work at all, right? Because my mind was just in such a imbalance. But I would say also that psychology is one huge aspect of it. And that is where biology is one aspect, psychology is one aspect, and that is where mental resilience comes in. And that's where I'm really passionate about, because that is something that can be built and something that can be grown and cultivated in times where you're not necessarily in going through a condition. And my psychology actually contributed to the initial trigger because I had a type A personality, because my worth was so much dependent on external variables that I was seeking validation all the time. My resilience levels was very tied to that. When that goes up, I go up. When that goes down, I go down. So it's very important, right, to actually build the internal locus of control and that resilience. Because it is a protective mechanism against, research shows that it is a protective mechanism against mental health conditions. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
That's my sharing.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing. I think you've got, you brought up some really, really great points. And Aloysius, for someone like me or the man on the street, there's a lot of curiosity about hypnosis. Could you share a bit more about how hypnosis can help someone on mental resilience?
Aloysius, you are muted.
You got to unmute yourself, Aloysius.
Oh, yes. First, as I said, when I first started the hypnosis, is what I do daily uh, for my profession. And there are a lot of myths, but more importantly, what hypnosis does is to work very closely with the subconscious mind. Okay, and scientists have already proven that the subconscious mind is as huge as between 70 to 80% of our entire mind. So that's how powerful the subconscious is. And if you can harness the use of this subconscious, we are able to use our mind correctly to the direction that we want. So what happens is that what hypnotherapy does is to assist an individual in a safe environment to help the person to regulate itself through suggestions. And because the subconscious only uses imageries to move itself, the hypnotist actually speak the language of subconscious to enable the mind to move forward through the suggestions that the hypnotist gives. So basically, we are also hoping to grow an emotionally healthy mental health condition or well-being for you. Okay, to give a sense of influence and control over their lives. And to do that, we work together with both conscious subconscious to give you the security and the sense and health building resilience in the sense. And knowing that you are doing something for yourself always gives hope. And that's what we are trying to do.
Wow, that's beautiful, Aloysius. I really like that. Okay, so now we are moving on to some fun bits, right? So we have some questions that we want to ask. So these are the questions, right? So to build mental resilience, should we challenge issues or fear head on, or should we respond with a Zen-like calm approach? Right? It's always questions. Kevin, your thoughts, please.
Wow, that's a difficult. That's such a difficult question. Oh wow. I think with all things, there's balance lah. As cliche as it sounds, I think. Okay, first of all, I think we need to understand that like different strokes for different folks. What's fascinating about resilience is that I host a podcast where I interview people who are purposeful and resilient, and what's fascinating is that like there are commonalities among that. There are common principles that underlie resilience. But at the same time, right, there are certain nuances that each individual takes for himself. And I think some people, right, for example, I'll give an example like David Goggins, if you know him, is a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL, or even a couple of them on YouTube, right, they really talk about things like facing it head on, like getting out of your comfort zone, growing to discomfort. And like if you are stressed, right, you just need to work like 3 times harder. If you're stressed, you say you turn on turbo mode and make sure everything is done, right? But there's also an element where you need time for yourself and take a break to pause, to reflect, to have that safe space to reflect before you can go in. And I think all of us need to find that balance between the both. Just realizing that I think I mean, for me, one of the biggest reflections, just to end this off and hand it back to Aloysius, right? I think one of the biggest things for me is like being ambitious myself, is knowing that with ambition comes attachment, right? But at the same time, I need to be grateful for where I am. Knowing that success has no sympathy for your excuses, like if you don't produce, you will not get the results. But at the same time, knowing that when you need to take a break, you need to take a break. So it's knowing where the wisdom to find a difference, where you need to push and get out of the comfort zone, and where you need to actually take a break and like pause, recharge before moving on. Yeah, so I think that's the best I can do in response to this question.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I think it's a wise commentary by you. I think it's really good. Aloysius, now the difficult questions to you. This is the new year, and we all hope for a new start. New Year resolutions are linked to building resilience, and some say making New Year resolutions can be good to guide our mental health recovery and maintenance. Others say New Year resolutions create unnecessary pressure and create a platform for failure and negative emotions. What do you say, Aloysius?
I'm a very positive guy, so um, negativity should not be the starting point in the beginning of the year, especially resolutions. Huh? But I think building mental strength, your mental resilience is an exercise, like how you build your body or get yourself prepared for a marathon, right? It's really building it day by day, week by week, month by month, and knowing exactly where you're heading. So in the beginning of the year, if we decide that we need to build a stronger mind, mental well-being, that's a good start. But we need to take it slow, and we need to have a goal. What do we want to build? Um, and I think it's what Kevin said. Let's all start by practicing gratitude. Um, and from that, we can then start to build other strength, mental strength in terms of resilience. Because if we cannot practice gratitude, we cannot see the benefits of the graces we have in our lives, the joy that comes in our life. And we start to compare, we start to expect, we start to have a yardstick which probably never did exist in the first place. So when we start to have a New Year resolution upfront, we start to build a stronger mental resilience, knowing where we are heading ourselves towards. And and let's all start easy. Let's start with gratitude, and then we are not wasting our time for, as what we said, this waste of energy, waste of resource. We are not doing that. We just want to build a stronger me, so that when crisis strikes, we look at our gratitude tank that we want to build. Say, hey, look, I have so many good things in my life. What's this small kink that is happening? It's no big deal. Let's move on. And we pick ourselves up because we built this tank of positivity. I think that's how we build our resilience. And let's start with the new year. And let's see how it ends this year, actually.
Okay, Aloysius, thanks a lot for sharing that. Now, Kevin, you're up next. Life is a series of ups and downs, right? So what would you say to someone who's undergone various setbacks in life, for example, being bullied, being passed continuously for a promotion, etc.? What would you say to him?
Wow. Might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I would like to engage the audience a little bit, right? Like, if I were to ask all of you, right, like listening, like, what is the secret ingredient to resilience? Like, what is it for you, right, that helps to actually overcome? Like, what is the secret ingredient for resilience? Maybe you can type in a chat. Like, for you, is it hope? Is it perseverance? Like, what is it for you, right, that is the secret ingredient you must have in order to develop resilience? Maybe you can just type in the chat, so like we can hear from you and just interact as well. Um, yeah, just type in the chat. Okay, Martin, self-love, self-belief. The rest you can look at the chat as well. I just love to be able to interact, and it's nice that you all come from different countries, different cultures, but we all share that same desire to be resilient and to improve our mental wellness. Great. Focus on loving service and compassion. Let me just get a few more answers before I continue. Acceptance. I'm from Singapore. Oh wow! Thank you for sharing. You must be very proud of your nation. Hope. Okay. I'm just gonna continue. I think, and Giselle. Okay, thanks for that support from your loved ones. I'm just gonna continue. I think what's interesting is that the all those answers are important. Like all those that you mentioned are extremely important. But there's one thing that we're missing out. If you look at the secret ingredient to resilience, it actually lies in the definition of resilience. Resilience is defined as what are we talking about? We're talking about the secret ingredient to resilience, right? So I'm just saying that the answer to that actually lies in the definition of resilience. Resilience is the ability to overcome or adapt to what? Failure or setbacks, which means that you must have failure in order to develop resilience. Without failure, without setbacks, it's impossible to develop resilience. It is only in our crisis that we gain the most wisdom and we grow the most. So every single challenge that you go through, right, a setback, is an opportunity to develop resilience. The tragedy is, right, is that because it's so ironic that we stigmatize failure, we punish failure, we think it's a sin, when in fact it's the raw material to develop resilience. And what we need to do only, right, is to actually develop our ability and prepare ourselves to actually meet that failure and that setback. And when you do, right, when you overcome it, you'll be so much more stronger and wiser, and you can also help other people in a similar situation. So I hope to answer, Bernard, your question, right, whatever you're going through, just understand, embrace it, understand that it is an opportunity to build your resilience and mental strength. Yeah. So I hope that gives you a fresh perspective. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks a lot. Wow, that is something for me to take back home. Yeah, so I think many in our audience are parents, right? And Aloysius, you work extensively with children. So how can we teach emotional resilience to our children, Aloysius?
Children or kids today are so different. They have the technology and the web behind them, and they can learn remotely, different from the older generation. But what will never change is, firstly, the physiological being. A kid needs its rest. They need to rest, they need to sleep, they need to recuperate lost energy during the day. So first and foremost, if you can cut down on the use of unnecessary technology, handphone until 2, 3 a.m., then wake up the next day, got to get to school, becoming moody. Let's get them back into the standard uh, coping mechanism. Sleep by 10, up by 7, no? In famous saying, 早睡早起, sleep, sleep early, wake up earlier, and it will make you a stronger person. So recuperate their physical body through sleeping early, getting your energies up and running, and teach your children stop worrying on unmet needs, and start learning problem solving techniques, so that they can learn to embrace problem solving techniques rather than just run away from it and looking at just meeting expectations without actually knowing in the first place what to expect. So these are the two things I think children needs to learn in managing expectation and frankly learning problem solving techniques to help them in their mental resilience.
Thanks, Aloysius. Thanks so much. Kevin, you work a lot with youth for rebound resilience. What are your thoughts? How can we equip our youth with resilience for their mental health?
Sure, I'm extremely passionate about this, and I think Aloysius is hit the nail on the spot. It's really about building their capabilities. I don't have kids on my own, but I treat all my students as my kids, right? And I'm also coming from a point of view as a son. Don't protect them or prevent them from failure. Prepare them for failure. A lot of times, especially in our culture, this helicopter parenting, right, where we want so much to protect our kids. I understand the need for that protective mechanism. Maybe if I become a parent myself, I will understand that. But sometimes it's also important to know that for them to develop resilience, they have to fail. And they have to learn some coping mechanisms. They have to learn how to be independent, be proactive, develop. However, right, okay, I think how to pronounce the name? SECCLA. Yeah. So I'm so sorry I can't pronounce your name, but you raised up a very important point. How do you develop mental resilience if you don't have the support to go through things by yourself? I think parents are basically provide the support, not to like hover over them, but just let them know that like you're there. Like build a relationship, right? And let them know that no matter how high they jump, there'll be a safety net below to catch you. Like to know that you have their back. And I think I learned this actually interestingly from wannabe politician that has been in space for very long. His name is Dr. Chi Soon-juan. So it's quite a controversial figure here. Regardless of whether you agree with his political beliefs, he's someone that raised his family really well, despite all his struggles. And I was just asking him about this question, and he said that, like, I just make sure that I tell my kids, right, like, Papa is there, like, Mama is there. No matter how high you jump, we are there, and we love you. Yeah, so I think that's the answer for me.
That's great, Kevin. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, so we got a couple of minutes more before we open up the floor to Q&A. As a final takeaway, Aloysius, can you share with the audience practical tips to build mental resilience? What would you say?
Talk gently, act calmly, and teach ourselves relaxation. Because that is where we start to slow down our thoughts, enable ourselves to think clearer, and use our imagination to solve issues. Because sometimes our rational, logical thinking may fail us, but our imaginative person, it's always beyond our expectation. So keep calm, be gentle, and learn relaxation. Thank you.
Thanks, Aloysius. How about you, Kevin? Any secrets to building mental resilience you want to share with the audience?
Fail. Yes, we need to fail. We need to fail fast and fail forward. Um, but I think in the process of failing, we have to realize that number one, seek support. It's really taboo sometimes. I don't know why in our culture we just like to like put people up. The individualism is great, and independence is great, but like we are interdependent, and we need support. So seek support if we need to, and also do things differently. I actually learned this from Angela Duckworth in one of the webinars she did. She's a thought leader in Grit. I can look at a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. But someone asked her this exact question, and she said two things. Number one, seek support, and number two, do things differently. Yeah, extract the lessons from the failure, and then make constant corrections around it.
That's great, Kevin. Thanks so much for sharing this. I think, yeah, so we've come to the end of the panel discussion. I think we should open up the floor to questions and answers. That's going to be really interesting. So we have one question from Lester. For adults, what are some practical or tangible ways we can cultivate gratitude and hope? Aloysius, Kevin, any takers? Yes, Aloysius. I see you unmute.
I think we really need to understand goals and direction in our lives, right? And that gives us hope. So as an adult, we need to start to look at where we want to head in our own life, our personal family life, and also our career. And once we have that direction, then we always can find hope. Without it, then you are always seeing yourself going round and round as though you're walking in the desert without, or the forest without a compass. So maybe seek life direction, life coaching with someone close to you, so that at least you know where you're heading. And that's where hope is for us.
Kevin, you have anything to share?
Pardon me, what's the question again? Gratitude and hope, is it?
Yep.
How to cultivate gratitude and hope. I think one thing I learned recently is to actually experience life a bit more. I think in our culture of capitalism and wanting more, right? Naturally, I think we always ask ourselves like, what's next? What's next? And I think it's really important to have ambition, right? But at the same time, if you all watch the movie Soul, Soul, if not, you all should really go and watch it. Disney movie by Soul. It says that, like, strive for all you can, but be grateful for where you are. And this morning, I was just taking a walk at Bedok Reservoir. In Singapore, there's a reservoir in Bedok. And I was just appreciating the nature and how beautiful it is. I realized that I saved for 20 years, 20 years, over close to 20 years, but I've never appreciated the tree in its entirety. And I just took that this morning. I was in awe at so much beauty and so magnificence of it. And I realized that wow, like in the process of striving, you can stop by to enjoy the roses, and to give gratitude for the smallest of things. It can just be a nice warm meal. It can just be, uh, a nice conversation you had with the auntie or with your parents. Um, there is this phrase by I can't remember his name. He said, "I urge you to notice when you are happy, and exclaim to yourself, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is." Um, it is by an author. He says that people are not happy all the time, and sometimes we just need to notice when we're happy and give that gratitude for that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, Kevin. Um, Coming from my side, I think there's a lot I could relate to, especially when it comes to gratitude and hope, because I'm someone who has intended suicides. Um, and at that point in time, it was clear to me, not being able to go through with that attempt, there were certain things that held me back, mainly relationships and responsibilities for these relationships. I think that's rather powerful now that I reflect back, because when we have certain things to live for, we start to appreciate those things, right? For example, family and friends, you start to not take them for granted. So that really, really got me on the path of recovery. And ever since, I've been just sharing a lot of gratitude with these people who, I care a lot about. So that's my take on gratitude and hope. Okay, so Christina, how do you build mental resilience when faced with multiple stresses and a weak support system? Kevin?
And develop resilience when facing multiple stresses and a weak support system. Um, you got to create an environment for yourself. As difficult as it is, environment is stronger than the will. Um, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and he was just saying that we're having this discussion, which is stronger, environment or the will. And he gave me some how much potential there is in the seed, how well endowed the seed is in terms of the DNA, right? If you put it in soil that is not fertile and you don't water it and the environment is not ideal, right? It's not going to grow into the tree that it can become. And unfortunately, we cannot control the environment we are born in, but we can choose the environment that we want to be in. And if that means having to cut off certain ties, it means you have to cut it off. And surround yourself with people that uplift you. Build a support system, whether is it through podcasts, whether is it through reading. By environment, I just mean all the information that's going into your mind through your five senses. You gotta audit your five senses, right? Ask yourself, are these things encouraging me, edifying me, or is it making me envious, jealous, negative? You gotta audit it and be very particular about it. Yeah, that's for environment and create your own support system. Uh, I know it's difficult sometimes, but it's just something that we have to work on. And then multiple stresses. I think I'll let Aloysius answer this before I talk too long.
I mean, most of us are under many, many stresses. I've seen a lot of my clients who come to see me and say, I have family issues, work issues, financial issues, many, many issues in their lives. And all is happening in one go. And it's so much for me to handle. And terrible support system at home. Parents are not aligned with my thoughts, and it goes on and on. And I usually ask them a simple question then. So what do you do about it if you have so many stresses and you have so weak a support especially in your family? And they say that what to do, my life sucks. And it ends there. And it's where things starts to fall apart, isn't it? When you think that your life sucks and it ends there, and you go back to hope again, and then there's no more hope. And I think what is important is that we need to recognize that we need to build a community of people during good times and try our best to suss out the different type of support mechanism we need. The people who are positive or people who are motivational in nature, people who are competent in certain aspects of work, so that when we need help, we can turn to the right people at the right time. And if we have multiple stresses, start to prioritize them. Get accountable partners, friends, brothers, so that we can speak to them on certain stresses when they are not so significant or serious, that we can manage. Let's not wait until everything comes on together at one ton over our head, and then we find that, oh no, we can't find support, we can't find friends to understand us, and worst of all, we have more multiple stresses that are coming in at the single time, and I'm drowned. So let's not wait for that time. Build it today. Take time today to build your community so that tomorrow will be always a better time.
That's great, Aloysius. You know, I identify with that because I've been through that before myself. And, you know, sometimes when we are so caught up with work, for example, we just ignore everything else, right? And one of those key things is having that support system, which I ignore for the longest time. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think that's such a great point. Well, now we have the next question by Sheila. What are your suggestions for building mental resilience for those with mental illnesses and being an adult and going through life as an adult? I think that's so valid, you know, for me, especially, I mean, coming from me, I'm still recovering. Aloysius, what would you say to someone like me? How do we find that extra edge in resilience when we are recovering?
I have a client that had multiple series of disorders, and I noticed a trend. Each time when a disorder strikes, he just gave up. Give up knowing what is happening in his life. He's not even not aware that there are issues in his own life that's causing his mental disorder in the first place. Those that we can resolve, not medically, but those disorders like anxieties and GADs and stuff like that. He's not even aware. The only thing he knows that I'm not feeling well, and he runs into his spiral into his own methods of trying to cope, which is to run away. I think awareness is very important, and knowing that we are in a vulnerable state, knowing that we have some disorder or less healthy mental well-being, we need to be very aware where and what our triggers are. And as you are already ill, sometimes you don't even know what to do. And this goes back to the support system. If you have good support system, be open and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Therefore, understanding where we are and accepting help. That's where we start off getting out of this cycle of illness. I think I think it's very, very important to start off.
Okay, wonderful, Aloysius. Kevin, you're a person with lived experiences, right? So what would you say to that?
I would say that it takes time. You know, when I first actually got diagnosed with depression and hospitalized for a while, right? I think during that period was very difficult. I mean, I can't go into all the details because you take too long, but you lose control of your mind. So, like, I mean, there'll be times where I just think of my own funeral and visualize my own funeral. And what's scariest about suicidal thoughts at that point was number one was that it entered my mind, that I was even capable of that, and number two was that I couldn't control it. And the second thing actually scared me more. And what helped me in the recovery was a combination of factors. I believe that, and this is just my life experiences, right, that medication helped in that balance. So if you require to see a professional and seek professional help, you have to, but it's not the only factor. Like the social support, like what I just mentioned, that hope and social support and the paradigm shift that I made, right, was actually one of the core reasons. Like it was very difficult to rewire my identity completely, but I can remember the exact moment where this epiphany in my mind that I don't need to go to university to be successful. I can chart a different path for myself. And the moment I made that switch, right, I just felt this sense of this burden being lifted. The science behind it, of course, you can go and research about it. Some call it epiphany, and different different scientific reasons behind it. But I just felt that I had to rewire my identity entirely in order to move forward. And I think that was really powerful for me. Interestingly enough, that was the start of another condition called mania. I went into mania for the next couple of months, which is basically a very elevated period of high, where I did things that are very extreme. But that's a story for another time. If you want, you can maybe check out the podcast or connect with me after this. Yeah, but I think running up what I just said, definitely need to have hope in your life. Like cling on to hope, no matter how difficult it is, right? You have to find places where you can cling on to hope. Find hope in places that um that that is still there, whether it's in the friends that you love, whether it's in your responsibilities like what Bernard actually mentioned, whether it's in a dream that you have in future that you want to accomplish. Like find hope in those things and cling on to it with everything you have, even in the difficult times. Yeah.
Well said, Kevin. Thanks a lot for that. Yeah, so I think we unfortunately have run out of time, so we're going to stop taking questions here. So I think what we'll do is, first of all, I want to thank Aloysius and Kevin. I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us in this fireside conversation. I hope that you gain valuable insights and are reminded of habits to building mental resilience. We just want to take a quick minute just to ask for your feedback. So we want to take a minute to hear your valuable feedback about this. So this unfiltered series, we can make it better for you. Please use your phone to scan the QR code and let us know how you feel so that we can make the next webinar better for you. As a token of our appreciation for sharing your feedback, there's a promo code after you complete the survey, and this can be used to support your mental wellness on CARA Unmask. Replay of this webinar will be on our social media, including CARA Unmask, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So share it with someone who could benefit from it. And we also invite you to follow our pages to stay connected. Our next unfiltered webinar will be on 18th of February. That's a Thursday. So please look out for it. We are really excited to have some amazing speakers, and we will be talking about how men and women handle mental health differently. That's going to be a big one. So till then, stay well, keep safe, and find joy wherever you are. Goodbye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Do connect as well online. I send the links as well if you'd like to connect. Thanks, Bernard, for
Thank
hosting this.
you.
Bernard, do we stay back for post-mortem or it's okay, right? We can go also.
Bye all. Thank you.